Okay, hello everyone. Welcome back to the materials development class. This week, as well as the grading week or the final week of the second part, we are also talking about authentic materials. Authentic materials basically are materials that you find useful, meaningful, and they relate to you, that you find them close to you and that they represent something you see every day either or that you do every day. To work on authentic materials, today basically, or we are going to focus on comics. Comics is something that sometimes we don't take much attention in, or you don't really focus, or you don't really think that you can use them in your classroom, but they are really good sources of information and teaching as well. Not only cartoons or comics, but also comic strips if we want to do something very short and not at all boring. What are we learning today? What you are learning today, you are learning how to use comics in the classroom for applying pragmatic intelligence as well as a cultural competence. First question, and that I would like you to write in the comments, as this video is going to be updated or upload on YouTube. I would like you to tell me if you like comics, if you find yourself reading comics, if you had them in your classes as students, or if you have used them in classes, if you have already some teaching experience, and if you haven't used them or you hadn't had an experience as a student using comics in class, have you ever thought of using them in your classes? What do you think will be the experience? It would be something fun. And if you use them already, did it go? I mean, was it fun? Was it interesting? You liked it or you didn't? Personally, I love comics, not only comics, but also manga, that is Japanese comics, or those are Japanese comics, and also some other countries as well, even Colombian comics. I like them as well. Some history of the comics. Comics have been in the market for some time. Unfortunately, in the last century, they got a little back. They got some issues of something that I'm gonna explain you later on. But at the very beginning, or the first comic strips, or like some comics that we some like box strips or comic strips that they were on the newspapers. You find some of them. The first one is the Yellow Kid, that was in 1894. That one is known to be the first American comic strip to be like a popular star. It was very popular, although the character, as you see in here, is not as the nicest. It could be a little bit creepy, but it became pretty popular. It appeared in Truth magazine, and it just started to get it some recognize of the public, and some people got familiar with it and liked it, and it became more and more popular. Then it start Little Nemo. Little Nemo, that was from 1905 to 1911. That was as well a comic strip, and it was originated by Winsor McCay. That was published in the New York Herald. That was also a comic strip, but as well, it became very, very popular. Some people started gathering all these comic strips in only one book, and it became like this sense of comic, like this little book that we can find nowadays. No, like these little books. And as well, we got Felix Le Chat, or Felix the Cat. As well, that there was a very, very famous character as well as comic in 1919. Little by little, all of these stories, these comic strips, these characters became really, really popular. And as they became so popular, teachers started wondering if they could use them in the classroom. And in fact, many, many teachers started using them very early, around the 20s, the 30s, the 40s, last century. And students liked it, they collected them, and they found that this could be a really good way of using this material in the classes, in normal, like every class. In fact, in 1844, the Journal of Educational Sociology started using it, conducting some studies, and they found that these comics were in fact useful. They created a lot of high-level thinking skills that kids were creating, were very imaginative. They had a lot of benefits from it. But unfortunately, someone, the Dr. Frederick Bergham, in 1854, released a book called Seduction of the Innocent. That was a book where he argued that comic books caused juvenile delinquency. He stated that because he said that most of the youth, most of the teens he was treating and he was talking to, they always had one thing in common, and that was comics. Something similar happened in the last century as well, like in the 90s and the 2000s, when they said video games are terrible, video games are addictive, video games create a lot of violence in the kids, in the teens, and that happened as well in the 50s, in 1854. Therefore, parents started. He was a very known doctor, psychologist, and then everybody said, yeah, if he's saying that, that must be true. And they start prohibiting comics. They start seeing comics as something bad, as something violent, as something that created delinquency, bad attitudes, anti-values in kids. But fortunately, someone called Stanley created a character that probably some of you know, that is Spider-Man. And Spider-Man appeared just after that, like in the 1960s, that is called the Silver Age of comics. And he had this character that one was a teen, as well as the previous study or book I was telling you, they were talking about juvenile, like kids, teens, and he created a superhero that was a teen, a superhero that was struggling, a superhero that was at high school, that had high school problems, that was kind of like the geek, nerdy, antisocial. He had a lot of issues to himself. Also, his family was the non-traditional family, because you know, his parents were disappeared or were killed. He was living with his auntie, and then his uncle was shot dead. So he had all of this background, but no matter what, always Spider-Man was like this really good, loving character. So as I was telling you then, Spider-Man, or the Amazing Spider-Man, became a reference for many teens as well as parents. They start saying that, yeah, probably or maybe comics weren't that bad. Good. Something as well that is really relevant and that creates a lot of engagement from students as well as teens and everybody who reads comics, is that they deal with up-to-date topics in today's world, right? Although, yeah, they are fantasy, they have the science fiction, they talked about magic and the dream realm, or like dream worlds and utopias and topics that probably you wouldn't feel, but they relate to today's world situations. Is the contrary. They have been this way of having like this resistance to what's happening. We will see it as well in things such as having, example, powerful, empowering female roles, like in the example when we got a She-Hulk, showing that not only men can be extremely strong, like amazingly strong, like the Hulk, but also we can have like a female one. We can also have characters like Daredevil or Matt Murdock. In this case, is a person who isn't afraid of everything. He lacks of fear, but he's also blind. So we have a character that relates to all these visual and impaired people, but also or people who have some impairment, and they can be also strong superheroes. We also have examples for the LGBT plus community, and example, the recent example of John Kent. He's the son of Clark Kent, also known as Superman, and he just came out as bisexual. We also have example Loki, no long time ago, and also was known that he's pansexual. Therefore, he loves everybody, no matter the gender. We also have Miles Morales, that is the new Spider-Man. Not has been the latest Spider-Man, and he's Latino. His family is from Latin America. Then they are aiming not only for this white community or American community, they are also very inclusive, and they are giving one of the most important Marvel characters, if not one of the ones who boosted all this comic love worldwide, the power of being a Latino in this community, in an American society. Why to use comics in the classroom? Why to use comics as a material to teach? Basically, they are fun. Comics are fun. They are similar to games or music. They also lower the affective filter. I'm not feeling so afraid. I less my anxiety. There is less inhibition because I'm reading. I feel more comfortable. I focus on the images. I focus on the character, on the situation. Therefore, the attention is less on myself and more into the book, into the comic, into the drawing. They are motivating because as well as when you engage to a book, you can also engage to a comic, and you want to finish and you want to know what's going to happen, and you want to read more. If you like Spider-Man, for example, you will find more and more comics, and there are lots of stories about Spider-Man. And as you know, there is a multiverse and then you will see, like in the last animated series or animated movie of Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, you will have even a spider pig. So it is fun. No, it's fun to read. They allow creativity. They impact your creativity as well, because you relate to the characters. You want to be like your characters. You want to design. You want to create. There is all these cosplays, even people boosting their other talents as drawing, painting, dancing, anything. You want to just be like, you want to have something that also relates to what you are reading. They have independence of thought because you are having your own thoughts, your own impressions, your own motivations. but also allows diversity of opinion, because some people like Marvel, some people like DC, some people like more independent houses. And it's fine if we will see later, example, in Civil War, some people will be team Captain America, some people will be team Iron Man, and it's perfect. It allows you to have different opinions. They also aim to the target language culture, because you will see how people behave, how they think. In the case of the Spider-Man, it's a teen. Therefore, you will find a lot of things related to their high school. How does high school works in the United States, how teens talk. No, you will see a lot of interactions. There are some examples in Batman. You know, Alfred is British, he's English, and you will see it even in the comic strips, in the bubbles. When Alfred speaks, you will see when he's speaking, his tone is different, and you will feel like this voice of Alfred talking, and then you will have Bruce Wayne just talking like an American guy. So even though you can see the differences in languages, they connect to the target culture as well, because you will see even events that happen, candies, how people eat, how people dress, how people behave in regards of the place they are. There is language of the real world. You will see onomatopoeias, and you will see short versions of some words, a lot of idioms, slangs that we are going to see later on, and they relate to them because there are many topics that are life related. I do feel many people feel related when, I don't know, Green Lantern came out as well as gay, or when Robin died for the first time, or when some characters got married. They just they relate to what's happening in your life. Also, they have opportunities to incorporate the target language culture and the pragmatic intelligence. Why? Because I'm thinking what's going to happen next. What would be the appropriate response? What would I do? No, how would I behave? And we can have activities to work on that pragmatic intelligence. As I told you, there is higher levels of linguistic competence. In depending, you can use the good thing about comics is that you can use them from lower levels to really high levels of language acquisition. I can have very simple, easy exercises for A1 students, but I can have like really complex. We can have a debate example or there are comics that allow you to go into these higher level levels of pragmatic. They can be expandable, not only the book or the piece of paper that I'm using. We can have role plays, we can have our students to write their own comics, we can have spring roads, we can have web quests, we can create a lot of activities using like a textbook. We can use them as a guide to create a lot of other activities. They are really useful because I can also get like really small chunks of language. I'm gonna give you some examples. In this case, I can work on an idiom, I can work on phrasal verbs, I can work on expressions, and this is a really cool way to teach all of these chunks of language, small chunks of language. And as we saw, I can see the language in use, really like linguistic, grammatic, pragmatic, sociolinguistic, all these competences in action in real life, rather than probably like a video or a conversation. I'm seeing them in a piece of comic. And the cool thing about comics is that you are the one who have the power. You are the one who can go backwards if you don't understand something, and you could stay longer in the same page and you can read over again. So you are the one who has the power in the book, and that allows us as well a sense of empowerment to the students as well. Good. In terms of pedagogy, it promotes, as I said, the language through the student-centered work. As I told you, the student is the center. He's the one who's reading. He's the one that is analyzing. He's the one that is taking a look at the characters, creating, predicting, previewing, doing all these higher thoughts, process thoughts itself, no? Himself or herself. Also, we are seeing this negotiation of meaning in the target language, the practice through this practice as well, not only student-centered, but also we can ask students to create in teams some strips, or we can ask them to negotiate. What do they think? If they agree, if they disagree. The activities that I'm going to show you in the next slides, we can create them like both for individual tasks, but also for groups. In this case, we will come up with this negotiation for them to say, oh no, I think this expression is better in here. Why? Because of this. I think I agree, or probably this. So we come up with this negotiation among them. Also promotes the use of higher level thinking skills. There is a lot of analysis when they are comparing, when they are contrasting. There is also a lot of synthesis. If we ask them to create a comic, that is going to be the aim that I'm pointing today. And that is all in agreement with the Bloom's taxonomy, all these higher level thinking skills. Okay, wait a second. Good. Why not to use comics? What do you think will be like the cons or the drawbacks of using comics? Probably the biggest one would be the buy-in. Yeah, comics are expensive. They look super cool. Yeah, you could find them online, but some of them, yeah, the experience of having a comic on your hands is far different than having it on PDF or reading them in the books. Also, as they are graphic designs, it is worth to have the paper, the material, that ready to have them. And as you say, it's something that you will cherish a lot, because you really see the effort of the animators, of the designers, the cartoonists, but to create all these type of materials. Also, there are ones that are really beautiful, and it's really worth it to have it. And probably most teachers, if you ask some teachers, they will say, comics to teach something? Because they are not perceived as something that is serious. Probably you will have some pushbacks from the parents, because yeah, I'm taking you to school, I'm taking you to the university to learn something, and why are you reading a comic? Also from administrators, from colleagues, or even from students. If they don't give them a try and they don't give them a chance to see that you could have a lot of good things from them, you take a lot of advantages, then you won't see all these benefits that you will have from using them. Here is an example of how can you use a comic. We can use comics to teach idioms. This is something as simple as an example. I got this cartoon. You know this character, its name is Garfield by Jim Davis. And Garfield is very well known because it has a lot of personality. And I can use this as an introduction. I can ask my students, oh, do you know this? What? It's an animal. Okay. What kind of animal is this? Oh, how do you imagine this? Based on the picture, what do you see? Okay. What characteristics? What can you infer from this picture? Right. And then we can see the title is Easy as Pie. Now, what do you think? It will be easy as pie. Do you think there is something similar in Spanish? And then you can explain the expression easy as pie. We can say easy as pie is similar to a piece of cake. Or you can say also, it's not rocket science, or is easy as an ABC. In this case, we are using, I started with one expression, but I can use 3 or 2 more. And we are showing real language. People say, it's easy as pie. Don't worry, it's easy as pie. Like learning languages, piece of cake. Easy as pie, not rocket science. As easy as ABC. And then we will ask them, what expressions do you know in Spanish that's similar to easy as pie? And we are teaching them idioms through comics. It's far better, and probably they relate more if they like the characters more, and it's a little bit more fun than basically writing the expression on the board and say, okay, today we're gonna learn expressions to tell that something is muy fácil, pan comido, right? An example, easy as pie. In fact, I learned the expression piece of cake through a video game. Another idiom, we have hit the road. Probably you know hit the road because of a song. But hit the road, here is another comic. It is the comic, this comics from The Simpsons. And the name of these comics is a series of comics, and they are called Hit the Road. If you have the opportunity to read them, they are super fun to read. And they have this particularity is they are traveling around all the USA. They are going through all the states of the US. And every time they go to a different state, they will meet some characters, and every character is of that state. Therefore, you get a huge tour around the US, and not only about the characters, not only about the people, but also about the traditions, the cultures, expressions, the language. You will see it in the comic, the way people speak in every single place, as well as having fun being with these characters that you already know. So Hit the Road, as the name of the comic, is set on a journey, or just leave to a place, begin a travel on a road, or just depart. No, we are hitting the road. Hey guys, we have 5 minutes. We're hitting the road. Yeah, where are you going? No, we are going on vacation to Malvar. Okay, good. So in this case, we can use this as an expression. Here is another example, taking our good neighborhood Spider-Man. As I told you, a good example of what a good neighbor should do, and that is the well-dressed Spider-Man. But in this case, we have this expression that is hit the sack, or hit the sack Jack. As you know, the expression hit the sack existed before Spider-Man, but Spider-Man popularized this expression because he had this particular thing when he started. He was a day hero. He used to work during the day. Nowadays, it's more like a night hero. He works at night and surveilling the city and looking for robbers and pickpockets and things like that. But at the beginning, he was a day hero, and he had to hide his school. As you can see it in the movies, he has his backpack, and then he just covered them with spider web and hangs his sack somewhere, right? And then because he was an example of a good neighbor, as a good teen, as a good, well-behaved character. He was saying, okay, it's time to hit the sack, and he was hitting his back, because it was time to go to bed. And that is an expression in English when you want to, or when you are planning to go to bed, you say, time to hit the sack, or it's time to go to bed. Hit the sack, hit the sack, hit the sack. Oh, excuse me, these ones don't belong in the. Okay, good. So I was fixing it. Therefore, hit the sack, or hit the sack, Jack. It's time to go to bed. Also, you can use the expression hit the hay, hit the hay, hit the sack. It's time to go to bed. Good. Okay. Another expression is face the music. Face the music. I don't know if you there was a movie with Keanu Reeves that is about yes, a very fun movie to watch. And the name of the movie is Face the Music. And it is basically what the expression is about. I'm showing you this one as Hit the Sack. Jack was popularized by Spider-Man. This one was popularized by this beautiful comic. It's a piece of art. This comic, if you can have your hands on any issue of this comic, I would strongly recommend you to do it. It's not easy read. I would recommend this one for probably like a B2 to C1 level, so you are capable of doing it. And it's Sandman. Sandman, in fact, if you could read prior to the Netflix series, Netflix is planning on releasing a series based on the comic. And basically the comic is about a man who dreams. It's about like, he is like the god of dreams, and everything you dream becomes reality or comes true. And this is what Face the Music is. Face the Music is to accept responsibilities of something you have done, or like yes, take responsibility of your doings. Now, if you do something, face it, face the music. So if you are producing music, dance it. I mean, it's like tomar responsabilidad o aceptar las consecuencias will be something like the closest translation to face the music. We can use comics to introduce vocabulary and grammar because we can see it in context. Example, this is The Veil. This is the first chapter of the first book of the beautiful comic Persepolis by Marjane Satrapi. And in this case, you will see grammar in context. This is me. This is a class photo. In here, we are using determiners, something super simple to teach, this and that. Here an example, we use them to introduce someone. In this case, we're introducing the main character of the comic. This is me. We can also use example. This is my sister, this is my mom, this is my friend. And we can also use an example to replace some information if you want to use it in your classroom. As we told, the good thing about them is they are supported visually. I can see the examples. This is me, and I can see the picture of Marjane, and I can see her classmates. I can see people testing. I can see kind of like I see something that is written here, and I can say, okay, where do you think is this? They will go and they can do some scanning, some skimming. They will say probably this is Arab. Yeah, you're right or not, but we are supporting by what I see. In this case, we don't see much colloquial language nor idiomatic speech. Reduced speech, we'll see it always because we are creating conversations very short, dynamic, like this. Where this? Where this? Imperatives, short, precise, to the point. The slang, in this case, we don't have an example, but I'm showing you another example. In this case, we will have some colloquial language like lose your touch. That will be also an idiom. No, so nice moves, Jeannie. You sure ain't lost your touch. Also, we get the ain't. No, you sure. So in this case, we have not grammatically correct stuff, but we got real language colloquial language. We have also the nope, nope. That is something you won't teach in correct, appropriate grammar, but it's something that you will say, oh, would you like to go? Nope, I'm tired. Ain't, no, I don't know, or I don't, or right. So this way of doing a negative structure in a non-appropriate grammar way, but that's real and people use it. How to use comics. So we use it now. We saw why not, how, and a little bit of history. Now, how to use comics in the classroom. When we're reading a comic, this is something that you can do before reading a comic. You can ask your classmates, your classmates as well, your students, to create vocabulary lists before, just based on the title, just based on the cover. What do they think they could probably find? And they could create some lists of vocabulary. In this case, if I told you, okay, we are gonna see, this is I forgot the name, Civil War. Then probably you will say, okay, so this is the fight against Iron Man versus Captain America. Okay, I saw a little bit on the movie, although the movie and the comic are very different, but we can have something similar. In terms of vocabulary, we can look for the context. So, okay, what happened? Probably the movie can help us. We can look for suffixes and prefixes for words. We can associate the images, so we can say, okay, what people are is in one group or in the other group. Even we can write a summary of what I think that we may use. Here is an activity that you can also use. This one is a vocabulary activity. What we can have is the strips. This case is about Garfield and John. I can drop out, or I can just erase some words into the strips. And then I'm gonna ask my students to fill them in with what they think. In this case, I'm gonna ask them to fill them with vocabulary. They have to read in general, they have to see the situation. Important in here is there are no rights or wrongs. Allow them to boost their creativity. We are not looking for them to have this super perfect, but just boost their creativity, their process, their thoughts. Okay, I think I could use this or that. Oh boy, is this? And we can see that he's shaking, that he's trembling a little bit. So I said, is it this morning? Okay, what could be? What happens when you are feeling like, no? Probably. And then I can look for the answers of my students, right? Then he's using some splash, splash, splash. Here we have the onomatopoeias, and he's using his having his coffee sip. No, remember that sip is also a verb. No, that is sorber or beber by little by little. Gargle, that will be the sound. No, what you have Listerine, and when you are using Listerine, you gargle, and then gulp. No, like kind of like swallowing, but in big amounts, food and drinks. So see, we can also see a lot of vocabulary that we can learn through a short comic strip. Oh, that feels so, what you will say? No, that will feel so. And then John says, you really, your coffee, don't you, Garfield? No, in this case, I'm showing you the answers. So we have, oh boy, is this chilly? Probably will say it is cold, it is freezing. No, it is icy. Yeah, and it's okay, it's perfect. In the previous one, oh, that feels so warm, or feels so good, or feels so fine, or feels so awesome, or feels so hot. It's okay. And you really enjoy You really enjoy your coffee, you really like your coffee, you really love your coffee, and it's perfectly fine. We are focusing in this case in vocabulary. I can also use the same strategy or the same technique, in this case in with grammar. This case I'm using, no, I don't want to catch the bus, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to be here at all. So here we are revising, I don't want to, I don't want to, I don't want to, right? It's a way of revising negative structure. I'm sick of everyone telling me what to do all the time. I hate my life. I hate everything. I wish I, well, no, I don't. No, really. I wish everyone else. Good. So then we can say, I wish I, and this is a strategy that you know. No, I wish clauses. I wish I was, or I wish I were, or I wish I, yes. In this case, he says, I wish I was that. And then he says, no, 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 I don't. No, really. I wish everyone else was that. No. I'm pointing as well the websites that you can also take a look if you want to. With Garfield, Garfield.com has every day a different comic strip. You can use them in your classes as well. I wish it was that. Normally, you know, with the wish classes, you can use I wish I were that, but take into account that Calvin Hubbles, I think he's Calvin, that Calvin is a 7-year-old. Therefore, he would have some mistakes. And that's also really cute about some comics that you will see they speak the way they do. If you have some characters that are kids and they speak like adults, they are showing their maturity, how grown up they are. But basically, as you know, he is a kid. He is a kid. So he makes mistakes. And we can have a whole discussion about why it's not I wish I were or I wish I was. We can also use a jigsaw. This one is a lot of fun because you can have like a strip, disorganize it, make it like in different, ask students to put it back in the correct order. So I cut them apart. I can cut them physically apart, or I can cut them virtually apart, then ask them to put them in the correct order and just justify their ordering, why they use this one is first, and then the second, and then third, and then fourth. So as you can see, this simple exercise promotes reading, vocabulary, sequencing, and if they are using it in groups, I'm not only helping them to use the target language, but also negotiating as well, why they choose this one as the first and this one as the second, this one as the third. Here got another example of Felix le chat, or Felix the cat. And here I have it in this order. I'm gonna give you like a quick minute and you are gonna think which one would you think is the first one, the second one, the third one, or the fourth one. Okay, you can pause it as well if you want it. And then we are gonna see the answer. So here is the answer. I'd love to be a real artist. Oh, that's awful. I guess I have no talent. On the other hand, who am I to argue with my public? So there we'll see. Felix le chat. Another activity we can use as well is to remove one character's dialogue completely from a panel. And we can ask our students to complete the full, the other part of the dialogue. So if you could wish for anything, what would it be? These type of activities, we can use them normally or traditionally in our classes, like asking questions in general. But here we are giving them a little bit more of context and making them a little bit more fun, because we are pointing them with some characters and they are seeing them in some context, rather than a question in class. No, like, if you could wish for anything, what would you choose? Or what would it be? Rather, I show it in this format, and probably it's more appealing, it would look better for my students. Here we will ask them to complete, and as well, we can guide them in some kind of way, right? And then he says, a big sunny field to be in. Stupid field? You've got that now. Think big, riches, power, pretend you could have anything. And he says, actually, it's hard to argue with someone who looks so happy. Yeah, so we can also like create a little discussion about what everybody's answers are and why they will wish this and that. And also we can create an activity based on this response as well. As we see, we are boosting the pragmatic intelligence. We are promoting the acquisition, in this case, of L2, English or French or any other language, as students discuss what's appropriate, what's correct, what makes sense, what is the filter, what is the register. Now, example, if they are talking, they are friends, the register is friendly, is Kit and his fictional companion. In this case, how they are speaking, far more different. It would be like an adult comic, or more fancy comic, or more like fight comic, right? The register is different, and that we will have to think, what do you think would be the answer based on the personality of the character, or the context of those characters, or the place they are. See, we are thinking about what's appropriate, what we think is correct, air quotes, right? In this context. We can teach them about politeness as well as sarcasm. Even we can take comics from the UK, comics in general. We will find a lot of material from the United States, is something really big in the US, but we can also use some Colombian comics, adapt them, and try to create another different way of teaching them through Colombian comics. Hello, how is it going? Not bad. Yourself? So in this case, we'll see a very simple strip, but we can learn a lot of things from this. We start with a basic hello, a greeting, and then she said, hello, how is it going? Here we are teaching them not only like using hello, how are you? That how are you is so outdated. Like nobody uses how are you? How is it going? How are you doing? How are things going? What's up? No, we can create a little bit of a piece of comic instead of using the traditional conversation. Not bad. Like, fine, and you? Not bad. Yourself? Yourself, that will be, this is a very slang for, what about you? And you? Said, yourself? Intonation as well, intonation. He will say, I've been better. No, and we can ask our students to complete based on the filter and register of Garfield. I've been better. I've been better. We can also use, and this will be a far more complex exercise, and the sequencing and prediction. We can show them, I forgot. Okay, give me a sec. Okay, in this case, the idea was to create example. We can ask them to have, yes, for example. And then I give them some boxes, and they will see the sequence of the story, and then they will come up with an answer. What do you think in this case he's saying? No, have you been using my crayons? Why? Yes, I borrowed them yesterday to draw some pictures. Well, what happened to the blue? The blue is gone. What do you think they will say? He will say, yeah, some of you will say, or some of your students will say, I love blue. Blue's my favorite color. Probably something that I've seen, they use, oh, I love your blue dress. That's what I painted. Or some people say, I wanted to paint the sea. I want to paint the ocean. In this case, the answer is, I drew a lot of skies. That. Also, we can show, as we were talking previously, the language culture, how people live, how people act. And this is something sometimes it takes a while to understand the language. Is not only the grammar, the linguistics, the words, but also the culture. Here we have a little comic, and they will see this is the World Cup. And then we have not a football player, not a football goal. As well, we can ask our students, and we can cover this, and we can ask them, what would he say, or what would be here? No, not a football player, not a football, not a football, not a football goal. And here we see this man sitting on a football armchair with his jersey of the USA. And what would it say in here? No, something as simple as teaching the difference in the UK of the word football and football for the USA, right? So, but it means the word football in the USA, no? And then we are saying a football fan, no? In this case, not a soccer fan. Hi. Okay. Good. Comics often offer a way to bring in target language culture. They are often culturally contextualized, opportunities for collaboration with other content area teachers. We can also ask other teachers to help us to create, or we can even collaborate among other areas to create, I don't know, like a science comic or a biology comic or even physical education comic. We can also use editorial cartoons for higher level students. Also, we can look for the comic strips in the newspapers, from example, the New York Times or Miami Herald. And these editorial cartoons are politically complex. They have far more pragmatic intelligence process. Like the editorial cartoons of Matador, example from El Tiempo, we can create a discussion based on an editorial cartoon from Matador, and then ask the students to show or to talk about their point of view. What do they feel? What do they think? What do they process? And they will say, about it. Good. Good. Here, as I told you, in this case, in the case of the Spider-Man, everything that was behind his way of behaving, his context as a teen student, also going to the university, struggling at university, fighting with his teachers, having romantic situations, and everything that relates to what they are living, how is dating, how is studying, how is working, have a multiple jobs, paying rent, having struggling financially, asking for a loan. All of these real life problems are faced in a comic. In this case, I can see how is life for some people using comics. Obviously, they are a lot of examples of comics. The one that I show you of Persepolis, that is real, all the struggles from Iranian people in the times of the Shah, even nowadays, they will help the students to understand all the Afghanistan conflict. There are a lot of migration. There are some comics that talk about migration. There is, for example, Mouse. Mouse is a comic that talks about all the all the migration from Jews into the States and in Europe in the Nazi period. You will get a lot of history reading this comic. You will find a lot of comics out there that point to what you want or what you need. So just find them. If you can find them, ask your students to draw and write their own comics. And this is the best way to go. I'm going to show you an example of a comic. So this is going to be a little bit of a reading along.
Jose is an 8-year-old child. He speaks Spanish and Quechua.
My mother tongue is Quechua, but I also speak Spanish.
He lives with his mom in Cusco, a very important Peruvian city. Every week, he has 2 hours of English classes, but he doesn't actually like them.
This is so boring. Studying English is a waste of time. It won't help me in the future.
Every day after school, he sells souvenirs with his mom at the entrance of a museum.
Aww.
Souvenirs!
So cool.
Where is the museum?
We love Peru.
When he heard the tourists talking enthusiastically about Peru, he felt proud and wanted to share his culture with the world. But he didn't think about the importance of learning English.
Mom, I love my country and my culture, so I want to show the world how amazing Peru is.
My dear Jose, I'm very proud of you. I have an idea that I think could help you. Look at the museum entrance. Can you see the guide?
All of you are welcome to the museum. Here you'll find plenty of things related to the history of Peru. Thank you.
Then, Jose understood the importance of English.
I'll learn as much as I can.
Who wants to participate?
Me.
20 years later,
Goodbye, Jose. Have a nice day. Take care.
finally, Jose became a tour guide at the museum.
And that's why the golden knife was sacred for the Moche people.
So as you can see here, this is an example of some students in Peru writing about their lives and their dreams, their passions, and what they wanted to do in the future, with perceptions about studying English in general. And so here you see an example of something we could use. As you saw it, this was done by the students, so it was self-made. They painted it, they color it, and it's perfect. So it's fine, and this is a way of encouraging them to be creative, to use their imagination. Obviously, as teachers, what we can do obviously is all this scaffolding through their process to make sure they are guided correctly, right? Also, we can have activities, example with this super basic, easy to read, easy to follow comic. We can have different types of activities in regards of understanding the story, ask questions in general, some vocabulary questions, grammar questions, even have an activity for role plays. We can have all four skills: listening, reading, writing, and speaking in one simple grammar. And this is what we are going to talk. We can ask students, in this example, you have the recording. You can record it yourself. You can ask some students to record themselves saying the story, and then they can listen to it. No intonation, practice, pronunciation. They can listen to themselves. They can listen to their classmates. They can listen to the teacher. They can discuss the comic as well. They can write, as all the exercises we saw prior. They read all these small chunks of language, very small but very meaningful for the process, as well as reading aloud. As well for the listening exercise, we can ask them to read, practice, and once they are comfortable, they can record themselves, and also they can discuss what they think, what they feel, and they can explain their ways, their opinion. Also, we can teach print literacy, since we are asking them to sequence left to right. If we were taking an original manga, that will be right to left, or some cultures as well. This is part of their cultures. We can have a comic that it's been read right to left, but we can ask them to create the sequence. You can ask them to create these thought bubbles, these dialogue bubbles, the onomatopoeias we saw a lot with Garfield, the glue, the burp, the gurgle, etc. The correct use of punctuation marks, how to create an exclamation, how it works, an exclamation, how it works, the quotation marks, how they work, the air quotes, how they work the question marks, exclamations, colons, semicolons, etc. No, and that is a nice way to teach example punctuation through comics. Also, the different ways of using italicizing is gone, but it's like the one that is going towards the right. Bold facing, underlining, using different kind of fonts to create some shake, to emphasize, to make them bigger, smaller, etc. In terms of assessment, we can assess their listening, by listening to themselves. We can also create a dictation after the listening. We can, in the terms of assessment in writing, we can ask them to focus on specific reading assignments, like the ones we saw prior. Even though we can ask them to reorganize the vocabulary example, and the exercise we saw of vocabulary, filling the blanks with vocabulary, we can even provide them alternatives, not go so open with what they would come up with, but just give them alternatives. So just give them a set of words, and they have to locate those words into the blanks. That's an easier way of doing it, and we can assess that writing part. Reading comprehension activity as well. We can ask some questions just based on what they read. And in terms of speaking, look at the coming, explain what you saw. We can use the past, the future, not reading, not writing. We can use it with the comic or without the comic, as we can. So they can use it as a guide or definitely not. Now what I'm gonna ask you is to start writing. And this is the task for this week. You are going to create a comic. Here are some of the sources if you want to use them. But I'm going to ask you to create a comic. You're going to have to create a comic based on your experiences creating materials so far, but also using the foundation of authentic materials. I provide a text, a document. You will read the document and you will create a short story based on that document. For that, you will have two options. Okay, so you're gonna have two possibilities here already in your class, at Campus Virtual. You already have the the text that is authentic activities and materials for all ESL learners. I gave you some websites that you can take a look if you want to, but here we have this site that is a Make Believes Comics. Here is a little tutorial about how to use this website. This website has a maximum of 19 boxes for you to take into account. In this case, we got 3 boxes. You can have a maximum of 19 boxes. That is the maximum you can do. So you have 2 possibilities. Once you can create your comic using this website, Make Believes Comics, or you can draw your comic. Make it by hand. Just make it by hand. Once you finish, scan it and upload it on the Campus Virtual. So here you have both possibilities, the ones that are more prone to draw, create, use their hands, more kinesthetics, or the ones that are more, no, I think I prefer technology and I'm gonna work with technology. So what are you gonna do? Then take your, this text that is here, the authentic activities and materials for adult ESL learners, and use this tutorial if you want to use Make Believes Comics or create it on your own. That is gonna be, deadline for this one is gonna be Sunday midday. So I have the afternoon to take a look, check, and give you your grades next week. So yes, guys, I hope you are having a lot of fun, that you create awesome comics, and let's see how it goes. Any further question, don't hesitate to ask. See you next class. Bye.